Internets, my name is Lave, and it feels like I've been away for a while, but I'm back now, and I went along and I watched Blinded by the Light, which is directed by Gurinder Chadha, who also directed the recent Viceroy's House, but is probably best well known for Bend It Like Beckham. And she's in familiar territory here, telling the semi-true story of a British Asian boy living in Luton in the 80s called Javed, who dreams of becoming a writer despite his father's wishes for him to pursue a traditional job. But then one day Javed discovers the words and music of the boss, Bruce Springsteen, which inspires him to pursue his passion. So yeah, this film shares a lot of the same DNA with Bend It Like Beckham, essentially swap out football and Beckham with music and Springsteen, set it in the 80s and that's your film. It also reminded me a little bit of Bohemian Rhapsody because you've got a British Asian kid who has big dreams and big ambitions and wants to pursue a career that doesn't align with his family's traditions, and he's got to find his own voice in amongst all of that. But he realises that chasing that dream might alienate him from his own family. And yes, we have seen that a lot before, but I think this film is a good example of it, and I especially liked the core relationship between the father and son. Viveik Kalra as Javed does a good job in his feature film debut. His character does have a nice arc as he comes of age, starting off as a shy kid without a girlfriend who's intimidated by bullies, who then gains confidence in himself through the power of the boss, making mistakes along the way though, becoming a bit arrogant at times. His dad too, played by Kulvinder, Ghir, is also a standout performance. The trailers make him out to be quite a comedic character, and yes, he does have a couple of funny lines throughout the film, and he also is a bit stubborn and set in his ways, but there is more substance to him than that. An example I can give in a scene which starts off like quite funny with him getting his hair dyed with black shoe polish, then develops into something much more serious, and you really get to see his state of mind. The film overall is a good balance of light and dark, mixing some laughs with serious undertones, especially when it comes to racism, but also the divide in Britain in general under Thatcher's tenure. It's crazy to think that this film was set 30 years ago, and yet the political landscape doesn't feel all that different from today. But then the film does get more energy and is more fun when Springsteen's music gets introduced. And I'm not a particular fan of Bruce Springsteen. I know a couple of his songs, but I must admit my feet were tapping when they started playing the songs. And I liked how they married up the music and the lyrics to events that were happening in Javed's life, or at least Javed's interpretation of the lyrics, and then comparing it to stuff that's happening to him in his life. For example, there's a really nice scene when his dad is lecturing him about school and all of this stuff, and he tries to drown it out by putting on his headphones, and they play Springsteen's Darkness on the Edge of Town, and it just works really well. The production values are decent. I don't think this film's got the biggest budget, but you can see they've done the best with what they had. The best thing about it is that it's not overly produced. Like when Javed first starts listening to his music, you see the lyrics pop up around him or literally being projected onto the buildings behind him, but it's not done in an overly flashy way. It's very simple but very effective. But at times I did question some of the creative choices when it came to deciding what this film was going to be. It's listed on IMDb as a musical, but having seen the film, I wouldn't class it as a musical. There are a couple of times when characters start singing the songs, but most of the time it's just Jared singing the songs as he's listening to them. I think in a couple of scenes it works, like one in particular when he's in the market and he sees a girl he likes and he's listening to a song and he starts singing it at her, and then just people see that and start joining in. But then later on in the film he breaks into like the school radio and plays a song over their tannoy system, and then he runs out with his mate and they're dancing along, and then they go out into the street and beyond and they're still dancing to that music, and it just felt like that's something that should have been in a musical, but it's not a musical. So some of it worked, some of it didn't. Of the supporting cast, there are some big names in there, like Hayley Atwell pops up as his teacher. Brydon has a small part as his best friend's dad. His best friend, it took me ages to figure out where I knew this kid from, but it turns out it's Tommen Baratheon from Game of Thrones. They all do a good job. They kind of pop in and out of the narrative. They disappear for large chunks. And there are some other supporting cast members which I didn't think were amazing. They didn't ruin the film by any means, but I think you could tell that this was also their first feature. But like I say, it didn't ruin the film, which overall I thought was pretty charming. So that's my thoughts on Blinded by the Light, and pause the video if you want to take a closer look at my enjoyment tracker now. It's a pretty cliche film, but likeable nonetheless. I can think of other examples of similar films which are better, like Sing Street, which was released a couple of years ago, and more recently a film called Wild Rose, which I did find more emotional and more affecting. But this is still worth a watch if you like those types of movies. So let me know what you thought down in the comments, and as always, thanks very much for checking out this review. I really do appreciate it. If you can, give it a like, and don't forget to share the Lave. Can't start a fire, can't start a fire without a spark.
Subscribe.